Okay, we're back. I'm John Furrier with SiliconAngle.com.
And I'm Dave Vellante of Wikibon.org. And we're here with Tim Young, who's the CEO of Socialcast, and now, of course, VMware.
That's
not
right.
the CEO of VMware. Not yet, anyway.
No, I'm not.
But Socialcast is now part of VMware.
Yep.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Tim,
Great
congratulations. Your story is great. I mean, obviously, I've been following the social space for a long, long time, as you know, and watch you guys come out of the woodwork, get funding. Great venture capital backing you guys. True Ventures, right? And
yeah, True Ventures and also Menlo Ventures.
Menlo Ventures. You guys really came out of nowhere. Great product, and all of a sudden, boom, rising stars, and bang, you get bought out by VMware. So we want to talk about that. We also want to talk about what's changing at the top of the stack in terms of applications. We all know Apple's got the App Store, and everyone's going crazy on that. But last year, VMworld was really weak talking about what's happening at the top. They had the Zimbra acquisition under their belt, and it was clear that Paul Maritz laid out, in essence, an operating system concept. Lower end of the stack, application support, Spring Source framework, and then obviously at the top of the stack is applications. So first question, how do you feel as an entrepreneur? You sold your company, you made a little dough, now you're at the growing company, not yet a big company, but bigger than a startup.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it feels great. As an entrepreneur, essentially that's one of your dreams, is to have the company be acquired, but most importantly, have the vision that you set upon with you and your team really kind of accelerated at scale. With a company the size of VMware, we really hope to continue the mission that we were on.
Talk about that vision a little bit. I mean, I think of Socialcast, I think of Facebook for the enterprise. I mean, maybe that's a little bit too trivial, but talk about that vision.
Well, I mean, I think, what we set out to do was not just build, a Facebook for the enterprise. What we really want to do is change how work is done. And so when you look at, kind of today's tools and what companies have invested in for employees, it's really been over the last 20 years in that back office suite. And, what they really need today is a more flexible communication dynamic, that goes beyond email and goes beyond mobile.
So the question I wanted to ask you is, obviously, as a startup, you have very limited resources, right? So VMware is obviously, we hear that from all the startups. Oh yeah, I'm excited. The big company's got resources, and you feel like you just got a whole nother level of dry powder, if you will. But the world of social has changed everything, right? So in Twitter and Facebook, they talk about federation. Federation is a buzzword we hear in the enterprise now, especially with cloud. So how is your Socialcast transforming with virtualization? How is virtualization enabling you to take it to another level?
Yeah, I mean, so Socialcast has had a great working relationship with VMware for over 3 years prior to the acquisition. And what's really unique about our platform is that for companies who still require things in their own private cloud or behind their firewall, they can run our product securely on top of the vSphere layer. And so that flexibility of deployment, being able to run a social platform behind your firewall, virtualized, or you can run it in a public cloud and be able to go back and forth in that hybrid scenario, is really attractive to customers, and why I think VMware saw that we were a really good fit.
Can you share with us some metrics, I mean, in terms of the scale that you achieved prior to getting acquired, and users and growth and things of that nature?
Yeah, so I mean, Socialcast has always been targeted really at large enterprises. So, we're used, widely by global companies like Philips, General Motors, Humana, and what's unique to our platform is that we really work closely with those CIOs to make sure that the platform is deployed not just virally but at scale, because this is a network effect tool, and you really need to have the entire employee base on it. And so that's what we really, focused on, was going out and attacking kind of that Fortune 2000.
Enterprise social software is a little different than traditional software, isn't it? I mean, it's not like, okay, here's the new email system, you will use it. Right? Like you say, you got to get it still has to be viral within the organization, right? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different approaches to rolling out social software, and I think what social software provides is that kind of a better nervous system for companies that's built around community. And I think every community of people, whether it's online or offline, it has rules, it has leaders, it has expectations, and so when you think about rolling it out, you do so in kind of small stages.
So the question I want to ask you is, obviously, being a startup entrepreneur, and now you're at the big company, share with the folks out there what what they could expect to hear from VMware this year, because obviously every year VMware is kind of adding more and more, and they're delivering new products. Cloud Foundry is a success. We're seeing some of the gaps fill in the architecture. What will the folks expect to hear? I mean, from your perspective, I know you can't really unleash the secrets, but what can they expect to hear? What are some of the themes?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big theme, at least for our group, is really how do we help companies unlock the potential of their human capital? And if you think about the history of VMware, our company's done a great job at helping you unlock, the power of your computing power. And now we want to be able to take that actually to kind of the human cloud. So, above all of, your applications sit people who are essentially problem solving. And we think just like virtualization, we solve a lot of problems with time and space. You can do that with your human capital as well.
So virtualization, obviously, even just 5 years ago, is completely different than it is now. It's obviously changing, and the business model of VMware is changing. Our next guest coming on this morning is going to be Amr Awadallah, the co-founder of Cloudera, where he's pioneering Hadoop and that whole movement. Where his angel investor was the father of VMware, Mendel Rosenblum, and so you got the Hadoop big data thing, which you know about because you guys have to deal with that social data, and everyone's talking about Hadoop. So what is changed in your mind over the past 3 years around virtualization? Not some of the issues around hypervisor, but like in general, virtualization as it enables, and with things like Hadoop and open source, the cloud business is really going to be intersecting with the big data sector. So how do you view that? What's your vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think how we think about it is that companies in terms of kind of big data used to be fairly scarce and hard to access, and now it's becoming super abundant. So I think what the virtualization layer does, whether it's for computing or for your human capital, is really allow you to maximize the utilization of your resources. And I think that's really the most exciting aspect for large enterprises.
Tim and John, last year, John, you recall, it was Zimbra was the application play, right? And relatively new. We were kind of scratching our head at the time, saying, what's this all about? But now we've got some cousins in the application portfolio, right? With, of course, Socialcast and SlideRocket. And so what's the play there? Can you talk about that? Is it an app store that VMware is building out? And is that the right metaphor? Should users be thinking about it that way?
Well, I mean, I think the strategy, as you'll see over the next couple of years, is definitely unfolding. So I think the key thing to really think about is we're trying to help companies understand that there's a new way to work for employees. And a lot of this is driven by things like cloud and big data, but it's also being driven by how we communicate and our communication behaviors outside of the office. And so we want to help companies enable those abilities inside, on top of the virtualization stack, and really help them unlock that potential of their employee base.
Okay, but is the App Store the right way to think about it? Are you guys trying to build that out, or is it more, that's sort of the consumer mindset?
Well, I mean, I think you'll see at the show when you look at other products that we have like Horizon, that you're going to start to see that strategy emerge. And I think application management and provisioning for IT moving forward is a big issue, especially when you're talking about employees who are bringing their personal devices in, employees who want more flexibility, and that's only compounded with constraints that IT departments face today. So as we think about our core customers, we want to look at how do we help them move their budgets from just being focused on operating costs to really being focused on innovation. So how can IT departments really help their business customers really innovate? And and part of that you'll see through a little bit of that App Store concept with Horizon.
So your competitors, well, VMware's competitors, now that you're with VMware, companies like Citrix, who we'll have on here, talk about the iPhone and the iPad being revolutionary. That brings up the whole consumerization of IT. So the iPhone and the iPad disrupted the enterprise with the whole notion of, it's not supported device to, hey, we need to support this from the CIO down. How does the apps? How's the collision of the apps world changing? Obviously, you're familiar with some of the social stuff with Twitter and other big, the data, and people are experiencing. Is that crossing together? Is it crossing over? Is it colliding? What's your view there, and how do you tackle that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a problem that everybody is still kind of struggling to solve. When we talk to customers, they're obviously seeing a lot of kind of non-corporate devices come into their enterprise. employees are bringing their own personal equipment in and deciding that they can be more productive and effective using that rather than using, the corporate supplied device. So I think, this whole concept of apps and app stores and the consumerization of IT is really kind of unstoppable. But what's going to happen is that IT really needs to kind of begin to shift how it's traditionally been done. And it's definitely beginning to do that, as we see in a lot of our customers.
But companies are blocking Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and saying, no, you can't use these time sinks or time wasters, as they say. So, how do you bring a social application framework into the enterprise without making it a siloed, walled-up product and, letting users not use what they normally use in their everyday life, like Facebook and Twitter? I mean, that's a challenge, isn't it?
I mean, it is a challenge. I think the idea that we've always had with a social platform is that it really needs to be in the flow of work. So we're not trying to create a parallel Facebook inside your company. We're really trying to use that social graph, that map of all the employees and their relationships to actually accelerate business processes. And if you think about a lot of kind of enterprise applications today that the average employee uses, basically when they're using it, they have a submit and a cancel button. And that's really it, right? But a lot of times what they really need there is a discuss button, the ability to actually talk. And so, in order to solve that problem, what do we get? We get blizzards of email, we get calendar requests, and then we get stuck in these long meetings. So the idea is if we can situate the social software in kind of overlap to those business applications, we can get people focused on using the social software to actually be more efficient rather than kind of the traditional uses of Facebook.
I think the whole social word is so overrated in this space, because I think what was smart about what you guys did was, use the word Socialcast because it's got kind of that whole social media feel, but it's really using the technology of so you're modernizing essentially the software layer at the top and with a social graph. It's not so much social media, it's just the technology's changing. You guys modernize it. So I think, most people think like social, it's a time waster. I really don't want that in my network, when in reality it's just how user experience change. You're modernizing the applications.
Yeah, if you think about it, everything, in business is really conversation at some point.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is essentially enhance the ability for employees to have the right conversations with the right people as fast as possible so that they can become more efficient and actually drive better operating metrics for their companies.
All right, so you're talking about this really is a productivity play in a way, right? And can you talk a little bit more about specifically how you're integrating with that traditional business software? Can you give an example? That might help.
Yeah, so we have a product extension at Socialcast called Reach, and that is the ability to embed kind of these conversational streams inside existing business apps. So you can take something like Salesforce or SAP or SharePoint and actually embed this real-time communication layer into it. And kind of the consumer analog to this would be something like Facebook Connect. So the ability where, like if you go onto a CNN story, you can see all your friends who have read it. If you're in your ERP system and you pull up an account, now you're going to see all the conversation in context. Who are the experts, who works on that, and now you can actually collaborate around those issues in that app rather than having to go to a silo place, which has really been the downfall of prior kind of knowledge management endeavors.
So Tim, just as we kind of wrap up the segment here, thanks for coming on theCUBE. I'm John Furrier with Dave Vellante with wikibon.org, just theCUBE, our flagship telecast. A couple things, just give everyone, the folks, an update on your current title and what you're going to be doing at VMware and what your objectives are for the year. What's your goals?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I was the founder and CEO of Socialcast. We were acquired in May, and now I'm the Vice President of Enterprise Social. So I'm basically in charge of really focused on expansion of the Socialcast product and also its distribution in the market.
What's your objectives for the year? Any particular points of like specific goals?
Yeah, so we have some really incredible new product extensions coming out. One called Strides, and we're actually demoing that today at the booth, and I'll be talking about it in a session at 2 p.m. And then we also have some smaller analytics updates that we're going to be really focused on this year, how do we help companies understand their social graph?
Any other goals like personnel? You're looking for particularly obviously more engineers. Everyone's looking for more engineers, but any market goals in terms of share? Can you talk about any specific business metrics at all?
I can't talk about those right now, but
come on,
in the future,
you're in the cube. You're feeling good.
Yeah,
we got a lot of green around us. Green hedges and everything. It's relaxing.
Green is good.
All right, so final question. What's your vision for the next 5 years? I mean, shoot the arrow forward. Show us, a little bit of the entrepreneurial vision while you still have it. From the carryover. I'm sure you'll still have it, but seriously, 5 years. What's going to change in the world of VMware and software and user experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is that, what really motivated me to build Socialcast was I saw a need, at least in the economy, that as we move into this information and knowledge economy, we really need that productivity boom. And I really believe that social software can really help accelerate and kick that off. And if you look at the parallels in the 1800s of the Industrial Revolution, at the World's Fair, when the American System of Manufacture came out, that really kicked off that big industrial revolution that led to about 180x productivity enhancement. So I really think that now that we've been acquired by VMware, we can really bring this vision of accelerating the human capital component of companies forward and really drive a productivity boom for the next couple decades.
What are you hearing from customers? Obviously, you guys are very successful. What's the number one trend and I don't want to say pain point, but challenge, opportunity that you're hearing from your customer base? What can you share with the folks out there that you're seeing out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are big challenges that the way they do business now is much different than they've done in the past. If you talk to a lot of our manufacturing clients, they'll basically tell you that even as recent as 10 years ago, they would design and build a product with a team that was in one physical location, and everybody could stand around a whiteboard and discuss it. And today the world is very different. All the components are made in different countries with different teams. There's locations that have specialization. So being able to not only connect those with virtualization at the computing layer, but to be able to connect the conversations of those folks is really a value add for them, and that's really what they're focused on.
Well, congratulations on your success this year. I'm really psyched to see how you guys built your company. You worked hard, went to the market, we were successful, and acquired by VMware. So congratulations on that, and good luck this year. Thanks for coming inside theCUBE.
Yeah, thank you.
Tim Young, Socialcast, great to have you on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We are live here at VMworld SiliconANGLE and Wikibon's continuous coverage of VMworld 2011. And Tim, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you guys.
Yeah, Dave, what's impressing to me is that first of all, I love startup success stories, and Socialcast
awesome.
Was one. And there's a lot of other social companies, Social Text. You got Jive, you got Yammer. Everyone's got this little twist on social. And what's interesting is it's not so much social media like people think it is. Like, oh, I'm going to have Facebook and friend people. It's a new architecture in terms of things like what he said, social graph. For the folks out there that don't know, social graph is basically your connections to other people, and people have those connections at work. And that just is a modernization. So what they did was they modernized the notion of using those new dynamics to create value. And I think it's not just trying to be a shiny new toy. And I think VMware recognized that, and obviously virtualization turbocharges that next level of applications.
Yeah, it was interesting what Tim Young was saying. I mean, basically he's saying we're a productivity play. It's really not what you think of as a social media little
hey,
toy.
did you see this tweet? Blah blah blah.
Right,
it's real work-oriented content. So.
It's collaboration.
Dave, we just had our first guest. We kicked off VMworld 2011 here in Las Vegas, where we had other events here. HP Discover, our VMC World.
Yeah, I'm
getting used to the Venetian.
Between Orlando and